Welcome everyone to a special presentation of, well, a Build-A-Palooza session that fortunately did not get recorded, and operator error was involved, and that's mea culpa. But it did give us an opportunity to once again connect with Sean and go over just a vast array of technologies in terms of home comfort and safety. Hopefully, we'll get into a little ventilation as well, both with multifamily and single family, wherever you live, basically, that we will do. So, as I said, this was the 10th session of Build-A-Palooza, which he had in mid-November before Thanksgiving. And we are back again. That's Jane Jacobs in the picture there. Build-A-Palooza was great, and you can find it on SSV TV, our YouTube channel. You search for Sustainable Silicon Valley in YouTube, and you'll find, I think, about 130 videos that we've done over the past few years on different topics. So this one is a very special one, and it was, you might see, if you know your old record albums, you might see hearkening back to Perry Como's Christmas album. And Sean and his special friend there are taking up the space in the wreath. This was Sean's speaker slide from Build-A-Palooza, a bit more pensive, but he still has vegetation around him. So, I mean, it's a continual thing. So a little bit about Mr. Armstrong. He is a founder, along with his relatively silent partner, Michael Winkler, a founder of Redwood Energy and a continual source of information about conditioning space and electrification. I think I'm usually reticent to use the guru term, but I will apply it here. Yeah, and if you haven't checked out Redwood Energy's pocket guides, you're really in for a treat if you go to, I think it's redwoodenergy.com, Sean?
.net.
.net, and look at resources, the resource page, and boy, are there resources. And we'll get into that, and Sean will be referring to some of those as well. So I could go on quite a bit with Sean. By the way, he hails from Arcata. I think he's joining us from Arcata today. And oh, I did want to say we did this Santa wish list, and just in case you needed one, in terms of going all electric in the new year. And it looks like really with good planning, and our wishes will be granted. So with that, Sean, now's the time to grab the screen and take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Dennis. So we're going to talk about specifically HVAC systems today. I've got my red shirt on. Happy holidays, folks. And I'm going to show this later. This is my daughter, the first day I plugged in our mist fireplace. I'm going to give you some more details about that, but I love this. Just as an image, like now there's a little Christmas tree here with lights on it, but they're not candles. They're not going to light your house on fire. And look, now you can plug in like a nice electric fireplace that makes, it looks like fire and makes heat. So I've been studying how to do this kind of stuff since I was about 19, and I arrived in California to Humboldt State University's Campus Center for Appropriate Technology, this demonstration house up here, and I was putting in solar panels and wind turbines and pedal-powered stuff all in the late 90s. Guru? No. I've never been to India? not an adherent of any particular faith, but I was a high school teacher, right? and, and um and then since 2005, I've been working in construction and helping out with design, specifically around mechanical systems, the HVAC, water heater systems, etc., to try to electrify everything that was coming through my portfolio, because that was the whole goal of my undergraduate, was how do we get renewable energy into buildings. Probably my coolest project is this one on the bottom. It's under construction. They're pouring cement and such, and it's going to have a 9-story tall solar array wall on the parking garage facing the DC Beltway, tilted up so it doesn't blind people. And then, canopies on the roof, or making it like an 11-story tall building, zero net energy. So, fun little history. I like stories. Where you are. Where you are is more than 100 years after the electrification movement really begins in earnest, with the Rural Electrification Administration, which was to electrify 90% of the rural households of our country, which was the majority of households in our country in the 1930s. In cities, which was the minority, at that time, 90% of people did have electricity. Huge social justice inequities. And when electricity comes to a household, yay, air conditioning. Um, so in the 1950s, to start the clean energy movement, the electric utilities came and banded together both to support nuclear power and advertise electrifying around nuclear power. So that's the beginning, for real, of our clean energy movement. Ronald Reagan was hired to create the #1 television show, and he opened up every nuclear power plant in the country by train. Um, for like 8 years, before he then started transitioning to running for governor. And note that while he was governor, that was during the first energy crisis. And so he signed off on the first in the country's energy ordinance, energy law, the Warren-Alquist Act, which creates what we have now, Title 24, the Energy Code of California, and a lot of other elements of our codes. What he also signed off on the first Clean Air Act, which is why we have an Air Resources Board. I'll return to that later in our conversation. But importantly, it's why we also have the ability to require electric vehicles in California, unlike any other state. Other states can follow us, but we have to be the first to do it if it's going to happen, other than the federal government. So when the energy embargo happened, policies changed nationwide, and that stopped electrification for 20 years. It sort of starts as a policy effort again in the mid 2000s, but it starts just naturally in 1993. Electrification picks back up. Then Arnold Schwarzenegger signs a law that says California is supposed to have all electric construction by 2020, which we still don't have. But nonetheless, affordable housing had a whole bunch of overlapping incentives, and I was coincidentally in affordable housing, and so we were able to pull off the the majority of zero net energy housing in California was affordable housing for like the next 10 years, from 2010 to 2020 or so, and it was 1 in 4 zero net energy residences in the whole North American continent was just California's affordable housing, which is pretty much all this portfolio that we were doing, because it figured out how to align all the incentives, and it all had this training previously. So when my mother-in-law died in the Tubbs fire of 2017, I became a more strident political activist, as opposed to, and I've been a political activist, but I was really focusing on just trying to prove out that we could do this on a technical level, knowing that that was the most important thing, was to change a paradigm and show people new things. But it got me organized around trying to ban gas in California. So I hired lawyers, and Rocky Mountain Institute and Climate Imperative and Building Decarbonization Coalition, they all helped out. And we supported Berkeley in their effort to ban gas. And today, the important thing is we have all the technologies that we need. We can electrify easily, cheaply, etc. I'm going to show you that, mostly on HVAC, but I'll toss in a couple of little bones. And I'm here for questions, for real. I can talk for all 60 minutes, totally fine, but I would love to answer any of your home questions. My favorite thing to do is just get into the weeds. Okay, so this is natural electrification paired with unnatural anti-electrification. California is unnatural. We are surrounded by states that have far more electrification that happened, because of our climate is mild enough that we can use heat pumps even in the 50s and 60s and 70s. But we're a petro state, and we're still a petro state. And Los Angeles is still the largest urban oil field in the world. They drill it right there in mini malls and such. So the reality is that even in 2016, the Energy Commission was so firmly against electrification that they literally banned it. I had to be like a lawbreaker for 6 months to work with Michael, my partner, who was willing to sign off on energy Title 24 energy standards that essentially said the gas wasn't available, even though they were trying to force us to say if it was in the street, it was available, and if gas was available, then we were held to gas standards and our heat pumps failed and you couldn't get a building permit. So we had to say it was propane that was available, even in cities, which was against the policy. Oh, we're so naughty. But anyway, we succeeded in continuing to work against the state and all the utilities until the gas ban movement of 2019 and on, when cities all throughout the state of California banned gas once every 2 weeks for the next 2 years. Well, a year and a half, then it started to slow down. So just so you know, the reason why it's green on the bottom is because heat pumps for HVAC work in warm temperate climates before you add computers, which starts in like 2000, really starts to happen in 2010. Now they're very common in 2023, 24. But they're uncommon in colder climates because it's expensive to run electric resistance in the winter if your single speed old-fashioned heat pump isn't working. So you see where it's not popular. Like New York, that's natural. California, unnatural. Oh, and just a note, Florida is 77% all electric, Hawaii 72% all electric. So California has a long ways to go to catch up, and we are the #1 gas using state in the United States. We're the worst. #1, with the most gas hookups of any state in the country. We're the worst. So we could focus all of our attention just on solving California. We're the biggest problem in the United States. So it's delightful to say the BACMUD, Bay Area Air Quality Management District, where you all live, if you're in Silicon Valley, and the California Air Resources Board. So they're saying 0 NOx water heaters in BACMUD territory in 2027. 0 NOx meaning all electric, heat pumps in the Bay Area by 29 for HVAC, space heating, the focus of our talk today. And then they're working on 2030 standards at the state level for both domestic hot water and HVAC, so that you can no longer purchase anywhere in the state a replacement gas water heater replacement furnace. You can still maintain, like, repair things, but no replacement, nothing for sale. We are slowly catching up. Slowly. We have nothing to be proud of here, just to be really clear. That we are slowly adopting. We haven't even adopted these standards, by the way. These are ambitions. These ones, this is what we hope happens. This is what has happened in Europe. It's a done thing. I looked to the Netherlands in 2016 when I learned that they had been banning gas in Amsterdam, learned that it was happening in Zurich, Switzerland in 2011, and they'd focused on accelerated replacement of entire city blocks, which they've been doing in Zurich for a while now. Big urban areas completely degasified. This is, you can see, the equivalent to space heating systems we have furnaces, they have boilers. This is just the super common systems. They heat water, and then water goes into radiators or hydronic fan coils, and then they also have domestic hot water, and it's a boiler, and they don't have much air conditioning in Northern and Central Europe. It's not much of a thing. So this is the equivalent of banning water heating and space heating. It is the same thing, just a different technology. We use furnaces, like I said. So, and a little bit of boilers. I wanted to show you what it would cost. This is the results of 675 homes that were electrified by the utilities in the San Joaquin Valley. So these are low-income households in little tiny towns like Lemoore, places that you've probably never been to, like off the 99 kind of. Now, the Bay Area costs are about 50 to 100% higher. In Silicon Valley, you're looking at 100% higher, being the highest cost construction market in the United States. Congratulations. So you can see here what it would cost for the stuff, the appliances. 15 grand was the average. SoCal Edison, they had it 20 grand. I don't remember what RHA was, but PG&E was at 13 grand. Rural Housing Association. Then you see weatherization. I'm going to talk about that for a second because it can really lower the heat pump demand. General construction work to accommodate appliances, frequently a thing. They essentially put all of the water heaters outside, so there's always a water heater closet included in this cost, as well as anything else they're doing, which they didn't have to do. They can put the heat pump water heaters inside. They just didn't know that when they were doing this work. It's newer science that's come out in newer field demonstrations. Okay, so then electric panels, circuits, and wiring, not an insignificant amount of money, $4,281. We're going to talk about how to avoid that as part of this HVAC conversation. So the average cost per house was 22 grand. There you go. If you're 50% higher than that, then maybe you're thinking 33 grand. If you're 100% higher, then you might be $40,000. And this is for the same 1,500 square foot house in Silicon Valley that's just got, you know, a cute little driveway and some trees in the front yard. But it's Silicon Valley, and I don't have to tell you about that. So, a lot of people wonder what happens if you electrify the space heating system with like a modern heat pump. Terrific example here, 700 houses that got their entire house electrified, and then the loads were studied. And these are with either two-stage heat pumps or inverter heat pumps. So essentially they work in the wintertime in Sacramento. In the old days, before the good heat pumps arrived, the air conditioning in the summertime created this orange peak here, 3.9 kW as the average for all these 700 homes. In the good days that have arrived, the same summertime line is now gray. Okay, so this is the summer, and you can see that it's dropped from 3.9 to 3.4. Yay! Doing math there, that's more than 10%, less than 20%. Maybe it's like 17%, 16%. Someone else can do that for me. But it's dropped in the summertime. Terrific. Now, what's happened here is that the winter peak has arrived now. Now you wake up in the morning, and this is a new thing. The electricity is going up at like 6 or 7 in the morning. You're turning on your heat pump. Do it every day, right? And then people aren't heating as much, and then they turn them on again in the evening. It's important to note that the peak in the wintertime is 3.3 kW, which is smaller than the smaller peak in the summertime at 3.4, and obviously both are much smaller than 3.9. Our grid is designed for 3.9 or more kW per house of peak. In electrifying the whole house, but focusing on having a decent heat pump, two-stage or inverter drive, means that you've lowered the whole house's peak because it's driven by air conditioning. No mystery there, right? Summertime air conditioning is the peak. So yeah, you can go for it. You can electrify your space heating system and solve a summer problem while creating a peak in the winter that is smaller, in the sense like the wires of our entire grid are designed for a certain amount of electricity pass through without them getting too hot or starting a fire. It's all fire safety code based up there on poles. So they're designed for a certain thickness of copper, and electrifying your house is going to reduce the stress on the grid. This actually can make space for putting an EV in here so that you could charge it at other times of the day, like at night or during the day, the two low peaks. And our grid can handle that also. You know, getting the whole other conversation is how you can use the batteries of car batteries to balance out the grid so we don't have to worry about variable renewable energy. Yeah, that's great. But I'm just showing here, put in a good heat pump and you solve a whole bunch of problems. This is the existing situation. Terrific illustration by HEA, Home Energy Analytics, working with PG&E and also Silicon Valley Clean Energy. So they got 1,480 people to send pictures of their panels in, and to just answer some questions, try to figure out what was the capacity. This down here on the left-hand side, is this a 35 amp panel? Is this a 50 amp panel? They found that more than 90% of the households had at least 100 amps of service. And you can see as it goes up, these are like 200 amp panels. Like about half the households had 200 amp panels, or more, I should say, because look, then like maybe 20%, 15, 20% had panels like 250, up to 1,000 amps for a house. And in blue, look what that 1,000 amp house is using. That tiny, these are all a whole bunch of different houses with 1,000 amp panels, by the way. You know, each line being a house, and its peak in a year over an hour. So the orange thing, remaining ampacity, you can see there's capacity to add heat pumps in almost everyone's house. And particularly if you do a load balancing panel, done. As I'll show you, like a span or a whole bunch of products out there. Okay. If you're trying to focus on reducing the power demand and the energy demand and just make your heat pump work better for your household, same heat pump, it might be producing 50,000 BTUs, but you can lower the demand of heating in the house by reducing air leakage. That's the easiest, cheapest thing you can do when you're working with your heat pump. You're like, you know, my house is kind of cold in the winter and we're going to put in a heat pump. What should I do also? And it's say, great, because you're going to spend like $15,000 to put in a standard ducted heat pump or more. You could spend $500 with someone going around and carefully caulking all of the spots in the house that have any little cracks, especially like behind outlets and around the doors and the windows. Just some caulk. That will save, as you can see here, at -5 Fahrenheit, it's like 30 to 40% of the heating demand is dropped just by caulk. You can see as the temperature warms up to say 30 Fahrenheit, what you'd feel, it's still that like 30 to 40% drop in heating demand just by caulking. One second, there's a question here. Oh, David, yes, of course. Dennis, would you mind sending out the slide deck that is in your inbox, this slide deck, to the attendees?
Uh, sure, that's in my inbox, huh?
Yeah, I just sent it moments before we started.
Okay, I'm
Thank you.
yeah, still have looking for it, but when I have it, I'll send it. Yeah, it'll be part.
Thank you. Okay, so the leakage and what you're trying to do overall is to avoid becoming one of those households with a with a 1000 amp panel and you're using 60 of them because you're spending through the nose and you're just getting kind of like robbed. Bad electrician advice. So if you do that, it's called a service upgrade where you get a bigger, thicker wire delivered to your house and a bigger panel box of metals attached to your house. That's going to cost no less than $2,500, but it's more like 4,000, 6,000 in Silicon Valley particularly. But it can be up to 30 grand, especially if you're up a hill, if you're doing undergrounding, which means you might have to, like it's $16,000 minimum to do an underground. That's the minimum for just the best case scenario in like Palo Alto or in SMUD territory or in Berkeley. Not less than 16 million if you have an underground, 16,000, pardon me. But it also takes months, 2 months, 6 months, 8 months, 10 months to get the service upgrade, 18 months of delay. We surveyed 100 people. We interviewed 33 electricians. And we called like 300 electricians to get 33 to do all of our like hour-long interview questions. And basically what we found is that more than half the time a service upgrade faces unexpected delays, costs more than expected, and leaves people emotionally upset. More than half the time they reported that. They were just really frustrated, pissed, and took a whole bunch of money and time and effort. So don't do that. Because you can see here the number third reason, and none of these need to trigger a service upgrade, other than like right now the panel's overloaded and it's dangerous. Okay, you could put in a better panel though. You don't even need that. So essentially nothing here should trigger a service upgrade. There's always options. But HVAC is the number three. So I was showing you before how you could reduce the power demand by caulk, right? And here I'm going to show you how you can reduce the energy demand, power demand. Same thing here. With higher efficiency systems, the federal minimum stuff that people are often 80% of the heat pumps installed in the United States are 8.2 heating seasonal performance factor. That's the winter efficiency, and a 14 in the summertime for their air conditioning, SEER. And so that's the low one. You can get a ducted system that's a 10 for heating, and that's the first time you'll see a computer inside of it. Great. Okay. So now you get to have that SMUD curve, something that actually lowers air conditioning in the summertime. Because look, now you have a SEER 18. Ooh, that's significant. That's why you saw that big drop. You can go up to a better one of a HSPF 11, SEER 20, 13 and 24, 14 and 31. Now notice here that the highest one is ductless. That's because ducted systems inherently lose energy through the ductwork and also with a fan blower. So I'm gonna say hi to Rachel. Hey, Rachel. I have a question here. You say, as a city sustainability manager, I struggle with empowering residents to push back on contractor quotes and recommendations for panel upsizing for electrification projects. Any recommendations for educating residents and helping them advocate without getting too in the weeds for their projects? Yeah, so in our single family guide to retrofits, on our website, I can show this to you. There is like 12 pages on the basic strategies. We explain it again, and we show graphs, and then we show circuit breaker panels, and we say, look, here's how you could do a 2,000 square foot house. This is what the circuit breaker panel could look like for 100 amps. Here's a 3,000 square foot house. Here's a way that the circuit breaker panel can be laid out so you still have 100 amp panel. And so those are handouts that were created by Josie Gaylord and I can't remember her name, but another really fantastic graphic artist. And Josie was an expert in the circuit breaker panel math and such. So we all collaborated, Tom Cabot, and our team also, to make these images so that they can just be handouts, perhaps from the city. If you were to say, I just keep these 2 pages, which are example circuit breaker panels, or I keep this 10-page section of the booklet, and you can take our name off. I totally have it, right? You just use those things as handouts on that section of and it could be handed to the electrician and say, I want something that works like this. I want a 100 amp panel. I know that can happen. Here's all the different ways we could approach this. And also getting 3 bids, but scope. Telling someone I want a 100 amp panel, and this is the ways I'd like you to consider. And you'll have some people say, like, I don't want to do that. I don't know what that is. And other people say, okay, I'll do it. Yeah, I already did that 5 times before. Sounds great. And separate the weeds from the chaff, or the grain from the chaff. That's what it's supposed to be. Okay. Could you oh, Max. Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for the awesome presentation. Could you please talk about any promising electrification strategies for renters? I'm on my way for this. I mean, it's in the slides. I've been thinking about countertop inductions as a gateway drug for electrification. Absolutely. I recommend the Chef Top true induction, but their Chef Top is the best of the 2 burners I've found, and they're $130 to $150. So it can be a stocking stuffer if you have a little bit of money. It's a wonderful gift for anyone's housewarming, that kind of thing. 130, $50. Okay. And yes, I give them away to my friends, and there's lending libraries of them. You could be just nice by, running a lending library for a month, and then, like, well, if you don't like it, I'll take it back. Okay, so as I'm going through how efficiency matters in avoiding service upgrades, reducing your utility bills, making your solar array go further, etc., reducing stress on the grid, and to see how far you can go. There's further to go. These coefficients of performance here, what you're seeing here in these numbers would be in the range of like 3 to 4.5. And that's what's going on in the wintertime, 3 to 4.5. And they're saying, oh, no, not 3 to 4.5. We'll get it up to 6. We'll get it up to 7. They're using a slightly better refrigerant. We don't have access to R32 in most of the United States unless it's packaged, because UL went from nonprofit to for-profit, took money from the chemical industry back in 2016, and have resisted all the other advanced refrigerants that would prevent Dow from continuing to make their favorite 410A forever and ever and ever. And so this stuff is 1/3 as global warming potential. That's good. It's better for reasons like it goes to colder temperatures and hotter temperatures, so it produces more benefits for electrification. Keep in mind that the benefit of electrifying your furnace, there's 100 times the benefit from doing that than there is from the detriment of if you leaked all of your refrigerant. Because your methane that's going into your furnace is also leaking methane, and it's leaking far more. And it's a horrifying refrigerant. So you just don't let people get you psyched into thinking you shouldn't just get electrified now. You should, right? But I'm just trying to show you that policy changes and activism, which we're all, part of, can bring better refrigerants to California, because we can pass a state law that would allow R32, but we haven't yet. This is what we have the best in the United States, which does get up to that efficiency that you see in Japan. And I realize that they're doing it essentially in the same way. These heat pumps are small. This is also a small heat pump. What that means is that the fan, which is what collects all the heat, so that you have a big fan, and therefore you can collect more heat. And they're optimizing this thing. This is a 7,000 BTU heat pump, so not even a ton. You'd use like 3 or 5 of these things to do your whole house. So they're small. They're kind of like a room. But wow, in Japan, it's how they do it. You walk into a room and you turn on the heater, and you don't heat the whole house, and houses aren't well insulated. They're not designed to last even. So this is the way they've designed super efficient small heat pumps. Nikki, you say, wouldn't radiant heat rather than forced air allow us to heat the room, not the person, and save energy and money? It can, but because you have to heat an entire slab, I've, of course, I put a radiant floor and I've studied radiant floors, friends with radiant floors. If it can, it can make it so that you're heating when you don't need to heat. And it can make rooms uncomfortable, especially in the swing season of the spring and the fall, when you might have a cold day yesterday and a warm day today, and you've heated your slab, and now your room is kind of warm and a little bit too warm because all the sun's coming in. And so you can even turn on your air conditioner sometimes on a hot spring day. And we get kind of crazy weather these days, polar vortex followed by heat wave. So the slab, I think has its benefits, but doesn't guarantee energy savings or comfort. That's, I think they get oversold, but it isn't that it isn't true, but it isn't always true either. Okay, so ductless mini splits is what the whole world uses. This box on the wall, you see that everywhere you travel in the world. It's usually an air conditioner only, but these are all just reversible air conditioners. That's what a heat pump is. It has a reversible condenser pump, it has a reversible valve, it has a little computer in it that lets it go in reverse, or back in the old days, not a computer, just analog systems. And these are the ones in blue that go to the coldest temperatures. You have a vacation house up in Truckee, South Lake Tahoe, etc. Okay, so you can get a Arctic Next Generation that goes to -31 Fahrenheit, or a Fujitsu at -15, or Mitsubishi at -13, Mr. Cool at -22. And they can go colder than that, but that's a rated for. So they still are producing temperature heat even after that. LG, -13. If you would like to start, like you have ductwork and you prefer to have those same registers, but you want to go with a heat pump, okay. One strategy is to use smaller ducts, not as wasteful, and have a smaller heat pump here. This might only serve half the house with this like low or medium static duct system. They make high power fans. These are low power fans and medium power fans for smaller loads. All right, notice that these heat pumps are only 18,000 BTUs, a ton and a half, but they're at -22, -4, -13, etc. And there is a federal program that's for cold climate heat pumps that continues to invest research money and incentives and rebates and all that stuff into getting heat pumps to go more consistently to -5, -30, so that it's just sort of built into them. There's a flip side to that, though. A heat pump that's designed to go to very cold temperatures doesn't work at very hot temperatures, like negative, like 115 to 130. So there's also high temperature heat pumps. They still work at 20 degrees Fahrenheit or 10 degrees Fahrenheit, but they're designed for the Mojave Desert and Arizona and such. So they're really more strongly air conditioners. Cool. Just so you know where your climate is matters. And Nikki, you were saying you're not talking about slab heating. I see. So hydronic, for instance, or there's not too many refrigerant-based panels, but usually what happens is you have a heat pump, heats water, and then there's like a chiller panel up above you, or a heating panel on the wall, or above you, or in the floor. And I take your point that those are not cement-based, and so they'll heat and cool faster. And yes, that is a efficient system. The cold version of it can cause problems. It has to be just carefully designed for, so you don't have moisture, that condensation, because something so cold next to wood can cause moisture to accumulate in the wood if you're not careful. You can be careful about this. It is an uncommon and expensive system, is what it comes down to, but it is more common to find in higher end homes. So I work in affordable housing professionally. I'm just gonna say, like, I just don't have a whole lot of experience with them. I know them. I've, taken training classes in hydronic panels, but yeah, and sorry for misunderstanding what you meant there. But I don't have them in this presentation. I'll just say that yes, they are efficient, and yes, you can deliver water that way, and yeah, good stuff. This would be an example of what you'd use for that. This is an air-to-water heat pump. On the left-hand side, this is Daikin. Daikin also like Chiltrex, Space Pack, whole bunch of brands out there. Daikin Therma is just coming out with this one, so there's a nice fancy picture of it. But basically, it's this heat pump outside. It is heating refrigerant to a hot temperature, delivering refrigerant to this box that's a heat exchanger. And it'll either be heating water to hot or heating water to cold. And then there'll be a tank over there for the hot water, because you're also making water for showers, so you have to have enough for storage. But generally, it'll just be making cold water that goes straight into a hydronic system, be it those panels that we were just talking about, floors, wall, roof, ceiling, I mean, or to a fan coil, like literally a coil of stuff, refrigerant in this case, with a fan blowing on it to then blow cold air or hot air. On the right-hand side, this is a nice model that doesn't require this heat pump outside. It's hidden inside this white box, and these ducts go through the wall. So it's kind of designed to look like a washer-dryer set. And this is the box that's the heat exchanger box and hot water storage tank. So it's just a different configuration to kind of look fancy and be able to facilitate you doing this in an apartment building, because you don't have to have a fan coil sitting outside of the building on the wall or up on the roof or wherever. Instead, you have it in this sound insulated, tidy little box. So two strategies for doing what we're just speaking of, hydronic panels and hydronic fan coils. Now, a very common system is for people to have on the left-hand side, where this is essentially two boxes. One of these boxes is burning gas, and the other box has a fan. And in the box that's burning gas, it also has a coil for cold refrigerant. So you have an air conditioner that sends cold refrigerant up to this box, and there's a fan. And that same fan is then dealing with a burning hot gas in the wintertime. Does one or the other. Cool. It looks identical to put in a heat pump. This is I'm not joking. I just took, they just show the same picture. This is the same thing. You get a Goodman, and it's really nice because the pictures online are straight up. So it's identical. It's just a reversible air conditioner, and you have the same blower box up there, and you have the same coil for the air conditioner, and it's the same thing. And most houses would take 1.5 tons, which is also called 18,000 BTUs, and up to 3 tons, which is 36,000 BTUs. And a BTU is a British thermal unit, and it represents 1 ton is literally 1 ton of ice. And as it chills, a ton of ice in an hour, it's doing 12,000 British thermal units of energy movement. One British thermal unit is a match burnt from tip to tip, a wood match. So 18,000 matches burning up to 30,000 matches burning worth of energy movement, either chilling or heating, is what it can do. Or 1.5 tons of ice up to 3 tons of ice. And these are the actual units that we still use to this day. Matches and tons of ice. Down on the below, this is what they look like. York, Goodman, Daikin, Carrier, a whole bunch of other brands too. Carrier is generally, in the United States, the industry leader on efficiency. Right up there with Lennox. Lennox is also good, and just to note that they have bespoke components. And so if you have a Lennox, you can only get Lennox parts to replace it, and they take often like 3 weeks to get delivered. So very nice systems, but not as easy to maintain as most other heat pumps because of the choices they've made in manufacturing. This is what you should not buy, but people often get upsold to these, and so I'm trying to just alert you. This is a gigantic heat pump. When these are called variable refrigerant flow heat pumps, and it's not quite fair because these also are variable refrigerant flow, and so is this, and like all these ones are, but these ones just took the name. Variable means the computer is doing work. Refrigerant, they all have refrigerant, and it all flows, so it just means like this is a computer supported heat pump. Cool. But in the industry, what they're saying with a VRF or a VRV, variable refrigerant, what is it? What does V stand for? volume, thank you, the little black boxes over it, my reminder. They are just huge and expensive, and they'll double the cost of anything you're trying to do with heat pumps. They are designed for commercial buildings like schools and churches and office buildings and things, and they can make sense there because they also are kind of noisy. They have individual pumps in each room to move the refrigerant back. Because basically what they do is they're a big box of refrigerant that sends it through a trunk, a big, not big tube, but a tube, to a manifold box and back. The manifold box then has an alarm and it has refrigerant sensors. So if there's a refrigerant leak, which is more likely to happen because there's all these in the field installations of pipes, as opposed to other products that have most of the work going on inside of them and some factory sealed. So they're just for really big buildings, and you don't have to do it. These days you would, what? You would use, for instance, one of these or one of these. And they see this one on the right-hand side. This one's kind of easy. You can see little tiny bumps. That means that 4 of these can come off, or actually 2, 1 and back in, 1 and back in. But the point is that you can have multiple rooms, up to 8 different rooms being served by a product that looks like this, or like this, where they've got a whole manifold built on the side of them, as opposed to having these where you install a box called a manifold where lots of pipes come off of it. You have to install it in the field in some little box that you've built around it, like I said, with alarms and electricity and pumps that make noise and gurgle. So, and it costs just way more money. This is for renters, all right? So the Innova here on the left-hand side, this is something that has to be put in with the landlord's approval because it cuts holes in the wall. The Friedrich, they make a heat pump version that's good down into the 30s. So, but not enough for the coldest nights in a lot of California. 3 makes an okay one. LG was making a high performance heat pump like this to fit into the hotel type. They stopped making it. They think they're going to come back and making it. It was during the pandemic when construction was shut down for a lot of time. It's not the greatest time to bring out a new heat pump. But here, Efoca is bringing out their heat pump for the hotel type, and they've done something special. They put a gasket. This black thing here is like a rubber gasket because these kinds of heat pumps leak as much as 40% of the air that they're heating and cooling around them through that plastic sleeve they sit in. So this one is not only going down to -10 Fahrenheit with R32, the better refrigerant built into it, with an integrated energy recovery ventilator, which I'll mention, and MERV 13 air filtration. It has 0 air leakage, and it's super quiet, 27 decibels. Self-cleaning coils is something that LG or Samsung was doing, and it's great. It's where you freeze the coils that you get accumulate dust, and then the freezing of them, then you melt the coils, and it washes off the dust. So that's the strategy for just running it in reverse for a minute or two to clean it, do a clean cycle, so that they last longer in their efficiency. So this is out on the market now. Very pleased about that. You could put one into your house if you wanted to. It's quiet, it's nice. You just have to cut a hole in the wall. This does not require a hole in the wall. Medea has come out. These are in response essentially to NYSERDA, the New York Energy Research Development Agency, and NYCHA, the New York City Housing Authority, saying we have to rapidly electrify New York City, which is where most New Yorkers live, right? The entire massive state. So they have been putting out calls. I've been providing the technical write-ups of like, this is the specifications and such to them. It's been really fun to see ideas turn into reality. So Medea took what they had made. This was an air conditioner before, and had been around for a number of years. It had an inverter in it to make it quiet and make it really efficient, but it's only an air conditioner. And you have to do things when you turn it into a heater because heating air can also chill air at the same time. The chilled air makes water squeeze out of it. It dries air to chill it. And where does that water go in the wintertime? What if it causes an icicle? It hurts somebody because this is going into a window without having to disturb the envelope, no holes. And it plugs into any outlet nearby, no rewiring, and goes down to -13 Fahrenheit. Okay, polar vortex hits New York City. People are still fine in these apartment complexes. They've got a heater that's still pumping out the heat, toasty warm, isn't it a nice evening? At a really high efficiency, so it doesn't stress the grid, even in the depths of wintertime. High efficiency here is a 2.35 COP at 70 degrees Fahrenheit. That's excellent. Now, this is an example of a heat pump with an inverter in it that is for renters. I've been buying them for my staff who are tenants, and also sorry, have I frozen? Oh, I guess I'm back. So, um, my partner, Michael Winkler, he had a ground source heat pump that then was heating ductwork, and it got fried with the PG&E voltage spike, and he could not get anyone to fix his ground source heat pump because there's hardly anyone around who has them. And he installed it before there was inverter-driven heat pumps, and so that was like 2001. And so ground source is the only way to get good heat in the wintertime at 20 some years ago. But when it broke a few years ago and he couldn't get anyone to fix it, I got him a couple of these. It's like, because other staff had been using them. It's like, Michael, you should try this. And it worked terrific. And he found it was actually quieter, and it heated his house just as well or better. And he's like, this is amazing, because for $1,400, he was replacing what had been like a $30,000 installation of vertical drill ground source heat pump. So they work, they're reasonably quiet. They don't work much colder than, say, 35 degrees. And because they don't have defrosting, when the ice builds up, they don't have a defrost cycle. They just stop working. And they don't have a vaporizer for the condensate. You could use an ultrasound to just get rid of it and turn it into air vapor and blow it out. These are strategies that other heat pumps are using, to get rid of these issues. So I've been talking with Medea, the company that makes this, Sarah Chinberg, wonderful, interesting engineer, terrific, about trying to make this happen also. And also with Cal MTA, market transformation folks. Like, we need to deploy these for renters, because $700 is affordable. You can get it at a hardware store. You can not even talk with your landlord about the fact that you're putting in the heating and cooling system that they are not aware of. And this flexible hose fits in a slider or a sash window. A lot of these products that fit in the window like this, it has to be a sash window up and down. Doesn't fit in a slider. This flexible hose does a slider. Okay. Now, are there any questions that nope, okay. Here is this adorable picture of Phyllite, my daughter, named after a rock, because her mom's named Shale, and Shale turns into Slate, which is our first daughter, and Phyllite is what Shale turns into after it turns into Slate. So Slate turns into Phyllite. There's Phyllite. My adorable daughter, about 3 years ago, when I got this fireplace, and there are halogen bulbs down below. So when you put your hand into the mist here, it's just faintly warm, and it looks just like fire. Absolutely. I mean, I love fire, and I grew up with like 3 different wood furnaces on a rural farm in Wisconsin. We'd burn 4 cords of winter wood. Oh my God, so much pulling wood into the house. I love this thing. No mess, no hauling in wood, no danger. Just not a hazard. And I mean, I nearly lit the house on fire once. My dad did burn down my bedroom one night. The whole addition to the house went up, and I had to like sleep with my little sister for a couple years while we built the addition back again. Emily, you said, are there any heat pump products that are both conditioning air and heating domestic hot water? Yes. So the products that I was showing here, Daikin Altherma, and I mentioned, I'll type the answer here, I'll say also Chill Trex and Space Pack, which are the 2 sort of leading brands in California. Chiltrix and Space Pack. These 2, like Daikin, they put their product out and then they withdrew it for like the last 7 years. So I put them into an apartment complex and then they disappeared, and still sold them in Europe, where boilers are a common thing, because this is the equivalent of a boiler. But yeah, Chiltrex and Space Pack didn't ditch the California, United States market. And so they still have loyal distributors and installers. But these are 2 sort of new products that are coming out that I was showing. But Space Pack and Chiltrex. Okay, back to fireplaces. Oh, and we're at 10:52, so I want to make sure we'll finish on time and answer any other questions. Dimplex makes an Optimist. Dimplex makes lots of different fireplaces, and there are other companies that make lots of like fireplaces that are of different vintages and looks. I'm just advocating for Dimplex's Optimist and also a Firewater, one word, a Firewater, which is more for commercial installations and higher end homes. These are cassettes that come in the mail. A Firewater, they're going to work with you. These ones have halogen bulbs, one color. A Firewater has LEDs and a remote control, and so you can make them into Hogwarts colors. You can make it into Pride Parade, or it's 4th of July, or it's Christmas, and the flames can be green and red and white. Spooky, but that's what a Firewater can do. These ones are lower cost, and they're just designed to pop into an existing fireplace inset that you have on a budget. You can do it yourself. They plug into the wall with 120-volt electricity, so pretty low drama. You can fill them with a 1 liter little water container in there. You take out the fake logs, and there's a little orange plastic thing in there, and you take it to the sink, fill it with water, put it back in, put the logs on it, and then you have fire again for days to come, without having to be refilled, and it's just no big deal. A Firewater, they will deliver like a little pipe of water. Like I said, this is more for fancy installations, but then you have no responsibility for adding new firewood, so to speak, to the fireplace. ERVs, energy recovery ventilators, also known as heat recovery ventilators, although those are not exactly the same thing, but they are, energy recovery ventilators are designed to be more air conditioning focused. Heat recovery ventilators are designed to be a little bit more heating focused, but mostly the market is dominated with energy recovery ventilators. So what happens is they pull air inside from the outside with a fan, and that same fan at the same time is blowing air out. And so you have the same amount of flow coming in and out. Usually air is unbalanced in your house. You have like a bathroom fan that's pulling it out, and you have wind from outside that's pushing it in, or the reverse, or who knows. I mean, like wind can do all sorts of things to your house. But this makes it so it's always balanced. You just have stable air pressure in your house. And then what is it doing with that air? It is heating it or cooling it through a manifold. So when it's coming in, the air that's going out of your house that's air conditioned during the summertime is chilling the air that's coming in. So you're getting fresh air, and then it promises filtration. So for smoke season, you can put a MERV 13 filter in there, and it takes out the smoke. So now you've got cleaned, conditioned air. That's what they offer. A bathroom fan that's continuously on, that's continuously on with the door open, by the way, so it actually works. If you have a bathroom fan that's on, you get the same MERV 13 filtration through the insulation of your wall and then through cracks. So you do get cleaned air if you do an exhaust-only bathroom fan. But it's, each house is a different story about how you feel about that air that's getting pulled in. But that is a standard low-cost way that we do, as an option to energy recovery ventilators. A bathroom fan is like 80 to 150 bucks. An energy recovery ventilator is 1,000 to 2,000 and installs for another 4,000. So have to make choices in affordable housing that you don't have to necessarily make in a higher end home. So these are for higher end situations or when the code absolutely requires you to do balanced ventilation. And these are kitchen hoods. So I worked hard with my staff to select ones that are quiet. Quiet means 2.5 sones, 1.5 sones, like Energy Star is in the range of 1 sone. Sone is no, and if you get up to like 4 sones, it's loud. 5 sones, which is very common. 7 sones, like this one at 900 CFM, meaning it's pushing a huge volume of air. Usually over your hood, you need in the range of 150 to 270 CFM. So this one is like quiet at that CFM, the Pro line. Zephyr, Kobe, Photile. Okay, so these are all on the more expensive side. Note the costs are like 700 bucks, 600 bucks, 500, 600, 700, $1,000. Down here, these are ones specifically that are airflows are good, 440, 300, 350, 400. So they can do the airflow like super pat, like my kitchen's smoky, I need to get the air out. but at reasonable CFMs. I'm just cooking food, and then to be safe, because I'm burning things here, smoke or God forbid gas. But even when you're burning oil and such, it's nice to have a hood working and quietly. So Brone is good for that, Whirlpool, KitchenAid, BV, and what you're looking for is at low speeds, this 0.5 sones, 1.2 sones at 120 CFM. This one says low speed. We didn't get a specific number at what is their low speed, but they're quiet. That's what you're looking for, is nice, quiet kitchen hood. So it doesn't make your head hurt, and it encourages you to use it because it's important for health. If you have a gas stove, keep in mind, it's just like having someone sitting in the kitchen in a lazy boy chair smoking cigarettes all day. It's about a pack or two of cigarettes worth of health impact on everyone who lives in a house if you have a gas stove. And no, the hood cannot match up. If you have someone smoking cigarettes in your kitchen, you know that even having the hood on high still gets your kitchen kind of smoky, right? So that's the reality of gas stoves, is that they are burning, the burner is like 6,000 BTUs. That's 6,000 matches that you'd burn in an hour of just having that thing on. And that is real smoke. Even though it's invisible, it's real smoke. It has PM 2.5, nitrous oxides, particularly carbon monoxide. You're filthying up your house just as bad as cigarette smoke. So this hood is a mitigation and not a solution. There. I think that is my last. Oh, I have more, but I'll just, the Genius panels, Span panel, Lumen panels, these are all ways to add HVAC or other loads. This is how you can back up your house, keep on heating your house during a power outage, is you can use a Nissan Leaf, you can use a Ford F-150 Lightning. This vehicle to house resiliency that you can do now with electric vehicles is a way to stay warm. And Paul, you asked, is there a benefit to going higher than MERV 13? Yes, you get more particulate out. 19 is like what you see in hospitals for super clean air. So, and where are we at now? 10:59. Okay, I
Oh
haven't.
yeah, no, we're fine, Sean, and don't feel rushed. And
I
actually, by the way, besides the F-150 and the things where they basically have inverters built in, I guess, there are kits now for Chevy Bolts and Nissan Leafs, where you hook something up to your battery and you can then hook up an inverter and extension cord kind of thing where you can power your house that way. I recently got one installed on a Chevy Bolt, and
say,
because that was our power outage strategy. That and a Sunny Boy inverter, an old 3000 or 3800 series SMA inverter,
huh?
can be wired to have an outlet, a cutoff switch to the grid, and then you can run an outlet and do direct inverter usage from the solar panel while the sun shines. So I saw you also had an EcoFlow tweet
Yeah,
recently. You might want to mention that briefly.
let me put that into the chat for people still here. I gotta ditch because I'm supposed to be in another meeting here. But EcoFlow is making something like the Span panel. I just learned about it 2 days ago, so
Mhm.
I'm psyched about it because EcoFlow makes terrific batteries, and the panels, like, and this is going to be an integrated smart panel. So just anyway, it can
Yeah.
shut off loads, keeps you on a 100 amp diet. Now with that, I have to jump. It was such a pleasure, Dennis. Thank you all, and
All right.
have happy holidays.
Compliments of the season.